Of all of the Evo SL challengers, the 361 Miro SL 1.5 is the best.
361. 361. 361.
All right, we're here with the Miro SL from 361. This is version 1.5. Their first version was presumably rushed to market to capture some of the hype of the Adidas Evo SL, of course, and it fell flat from all of the Chinese reviewers because there was an issue with the tongue where there was some like scratchy bits that were poking out of the top of the tongue that irritated people's feet, and they basically said it wasn't worth getting because of that one big issue. So 361 decided to just make another upper and re-release the shoe as a 1.5, which makes a ton of sense because if it's a quick thing that you could fix, might as well implement the hot fix, right? So I was fortunate enough never to have purchased the original version of this shoe, and when I saw that the upper issue was fixed, I was like, well, I'm already ordering a batch of Chinese running shoes. I might as well test this one as well. And on first look, first weigh-in, all of the initial impressions that I have of this so far, it has the look and the feel of a shoe that I'm gonna like. It's a nice feeling foam that feels similar to Light Strike Pro. It seems to have a nice upper, and I'm looking forward to testing it. It's not a gusseted tongue, it is sewn in, which I also really enjoy. The toe box is pretty wide also, which is something that I like. And another thing that I hadn't noticed until just this very minute was that this has like a pretty long eyelet chain. And that's something on the Dynafish Xiaoyan that I really enjoyed. It just provides for like a nice customizable lace-up experience, and different like tensions across each of the eyelet parallels going all the way down the foot. This doesn't extend quite as far as the Xiaoyan, at least visually it doesn't, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eyelet parallels instead of a lot of shoes have 5. And there's really 7 because of the final loop for the runner's knot, which I never personally use, but there is a place for that. I always struggle with the 361 laces, getting it laced up. I don't know if like it's not backwards this time. Normally 361 sends the shoes laced backwards from the factory, and this maybe it's like laced backwards all the way up the shoe except for on the last one. I can't really tell what's going on here, but yeah, same annoying lace-up experience so far, but whatever, that's not very critical to the shoe. Yeah, I like this clean cream and white colorway. It's nice. There were others. I just like this one the best with the black logo. Just seems like a classic shoe. You could probably wear this for casual use as well. It's very simple. There's not a lot going on here. One thing I'll say going into today's test, I did have a day off yesterday because Monday is my rest day, which I am grateful for. I was in pain all of yesterday, though, so the 20-mile long run on Sunday didn't really do me any favors, but I'm trying to maintain my mileage and work through this injury as best as I can. And it's, I'm able to run. It's just painful for the first 3 to 4 miles of each run, but once I get going, it really does not hurt. And so I don't know what type of injury it is. It's still like medially in the knee crook that I'm feeling the pain right now. And I noticed also yesterday laying in bed that if I don't bend my legs, which is not convenient because I'm a side sleeper, but if I don't bend my legs, then it doesn't re-tension the injury. And I seem to be like fine getting up and moving around after not bending my legs. But when you work remotely and have a sit down desk job, um, you got to bend your legs sometimes, you know? So anytime I sit for too long or lay down for too long, like sleeping, it just sort of re-tensions itself and feels pretty bad. But so far, the shoes, at least, the Miro SL2 1.5, are feeling pretty good. That wasn't too bad lacing these up, honestly, given how weird the tension is across the laces. Yeah, my legs still hurt, for sure. But look at that. That's pretty comfortable. It's really hard to say what this is going to feel like underfoot because I'm standing on carpet right now. But I was able to jump just there. That's great. That's really a good sign. Like, not too bad in the pain department this morning. We're going to find out how it goes once we get out on the run, which I'm about to do shortly. The laces are definitely too long. That's comical. It feels like this is an energetic foam, but it doesn't feel like it's like a insane, crazy super foam. So let's, we really just got to run to find out. In general, I wait till the 4th mile to give my thoughts, but I think they are pretty solidified already at mile 3 that this is a very good shoe. And it is unfortunate that my current state of injury is preventing me from letting it rip, but this is some of the better feeling first few miles over the last couple of weeks. It's not perfect, but I want to run all my runs in these right now. Now, of course, I am completely sick of the Evo SL as a topic of conversation, but the foam in this feels like they just took it from the Adidas contracted factory and slapped it under the improved upper. So far, I haven't had any upper issues, no lockdown issues, nothing. I'm running very slow for what I think this shoe would be actually best for, and I know that it wants me to go faster right now. And indeed, I am going faster than a lot of my runs have started over the last couple of weeks. Like, it took me less time to get down to sub 9-minute pace. I'm only hanging out at around 9:30 right now, which is very slow, especially given the temperature, which is a lot cooler today. But it hurts, I could only do what I could do, and I want to keep the show moving. I did get a couple other faster shoes in the mail, and I'm not going to test those until I'm recovered. It's just, it wouldn't be fair. This has the benefit of being a daily trainer that might actually help me get through this period of agony. And so that's why I'm testing it now, because, if it can help me recover and be excited about running again, that's what I really need in my life right now, because it's been a rough couple of weeks, not only physically but mentally, where I'm just not excited to run because every time I run it hurts. And I know y'all are gonna say, take some time off, take some rest. Well, I take Mondays off and it didn't do anything to help. So, and the only thing that does help reduce the pain is movement. Like, even just walking around the house, if I'm sitting for too long, it starts to hurt again. So I'd rather continue to run at the risk of further injuring myself and be in less pain after running than yesterday limping around the house for an entire day because my leg could never fully warm up. You know what I mean? And obviously I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong, and I shouldn't be giving out advice to you all to just power through and push through the pain, because that's bad advice, but that's what I'm doing. I just did my first and probably only retie. It feels pretty good now. And I did notice that the tongue has slipped. So we got some tongue slip. Not totally out of place though. Like the laces were still on top of the tongue. But yeah, some tongue slip. These though feel incredible. I'm having a really good run so far. And that is above and beyond what I could say for any run for 3-ish weeks. It's been a while. And I had one good run last week where I thought I was on the way out of the injury cycle. I still don't think I'm out of it with this one, but I'm just gonna do a single today. And partially because I only really have time to run once. And just beyond the recovery, beyond heat, beyond resting, eating a lot of food, and taking care of myself. But these are, honestly, it feels nearly identical to the Evo SL midsole. And it's weird to run slowly in this type of shoe. It's just not something I'm used to. Because if you're lacing up one of these super ligeras, you're trying to go fast. And that's just not what today is about for me.
I look into the mirror, my reflection.
I just hit a 7:56 mile, which is the fastest mile I've ran in like a week and a half. It felt good. I mean, the start of the run today felt terrible, but it's felt good for the rest of it. I am loving these shoes. So far, over the last couple of weeks, for the period of injury that I've been through, these have been kind of the best so far that I've run in. And granted, I've been running in a lot of old favorites, and there's obviously a novelty component to running in this right now. But man, I feel good. The Miro SL 1.5 coming in hot.
3, 6, 1.
I might be about to run every run in the Miro SL until I'm healed. These are crushing it today. And it really feels like the shoes. I feel the fresh super foam. It feels more energetic than the Puma DV8 Pure. It feels on par, almost identical to the Evo SL, but with an upper that can control it and a geometry that doesn't lead to medial tippage. And I'm just having a good day for the first time in a little while. 14 miles, 9:11 pace. I finished the last two off at 7:42 and 7:46, which, if you take my whole context of running pace and like what I'm shooting for my next marathon, that's obviously not very good. But if you take into context the last like 2 to 3 weeks of training, those are some of the fastest miles that I've run, period. And it felt great doing it. And there are two factors in this today. One is the weather. It is substantially cooler. It's like mid-70s and breezy, and overcast makes a huge difference, even if it is 93% humidity, which I looked before leaving, and it is 93% humidity. But it didn't matter today. It felt cool the whole time. The second thing is the shoes are great. I mean, just great shoes, fantastic shoes. Yeah, I'm not even joking. I might just run the rest of my runs in these until I'm not injured anymore. They're that good. I don't want to wear anything else right now. I haven't felt that good underfoot in a shoe during this period of injury, period. Like, these are the best for how I'm feeling lately. That doesn't say anything of performance-wise whether they're the best, but the fact that I was able to hit some of the paces that I was just able to hit, despite starting out in a wicked amount of pain, does indicate maybe two things. Maybe the shoes are really that quick and responsive and nice, and maybe I am actually overcoming this injury. It seems to be like a scatter plot that's trending upwards a bit. Upwards and to the right, I'm getting better, but it's not linear. These things are not linear. About the shoes, there's really not much to say on an upper perspective. Like, I didn't notice it the whole time. I retied one time, and that resolved any of the, like, just, it was a little too loose, but I didn't want it to be too tight because tightness could indicate or like resonate upwards in through the chain for me, where if my shoes are too tight, maybe it'll tighten along the tendon and apply pressure along the chain. And I'm just trying to keep everything loose right now, not like just my shoes, but my muscles, my tendons. I want everything to feel relaxed and easy and not to put too much tension on any single thing, just to take care of myself. But then tightening them actually made the shoes come alive a little bit more, and that's something that I've noticed throughout time, that sometimes tightening a shoe could change the entire midsole characteristic, like the ride characteristic of it, from sort of a softer, mushier feel to a much more snappy and responsive feel. And these never felt mushy from even the first step. I knew they were a firm shoe, but when I tightened them, it felt like I, strapped on the rollerblades and I started to go for the ride a little bit. Yeah, and ever since then, everything was great. I owe that a little bit to the wider toe box, tons of room for toe splay. They fit right in a 10, just perfect fit in a 10, so go true to size, or if you're in between sizes, go to your bigger size. We'll talk about in the studio the fit of the Miro SL as well, but the only thing to note that I noted on the run that could be a negative is the tongue slipped a little bit, that I mentioned earlier, but slipped a little bit, and it didn't cause any issues. It's firm, it's a firm shoe for the people that are averse to firm shoes, that don't like firm shoes. Sorry, there was like a bug on my foot that I was trying to slyly get rid of without y'all noticing, but I had to speak up because I became distracted by the leg bug. These are fast, they are bouncy, they are like Light Strike Pro. Honestly, like the classic Light Strike Pro feeling. I don't know if that's what it is, because everything from 361 is the CQT Extreme 3, dumbest name for a foam ever, but these don't feel like a PIBA. That's what that typically is. These feel very much like a TPEE. There's a characteristic to TPEEs that I pick up on when I'm going downhill, particularly, and landing midfoot to heel, that is this like side to side jiggly vibrational like landing, and it's shocking a little bit, but not in an uncomfortable way, just in a like TPEE way. It feels like TPEE going downhill in shoes like this, like the Dynafish Xiaoyan, like the Evo SL. There are tons of shoes that I've had this sensation in, and they're all known TPEEs, and I've never had that sensation in a PIBA. Like, for example, going downhill in the DV8 or in the X-Step 2K Pro, that I don't feel that landing on my heel going downhill. It's only in TPEE shoes. So maybe I'm wrong, right? I could totally be wrong, but that's just what it feels like to me underfoot. Walking around here, there's actually a bit of a medial like arch support feel further back in the heel that I didn't notice on the run. I'm not always the most observant of weird insole geometries on the run. They typically only become apparent to me when I'm standing still or walking around. So I'm noticing that right now, but I didn't notice it on the run. All right, with that, back to the studio. And we're back in the studio with the Miro SL 1.5. Let's talk about the run really quick, and then I want to provide a bit of context on this shoe in case you skipped the earlier sections of the review, and then we'll get into the full review breakdown. So about the run today, I took this out. I wasn't sure how far I was going to go because at the beginning my leg was hurting really bad. Typically, it is my schedule to go about 14 on Tuesdays, and as it was a Tuesday, that's what I ended up doing. I got some of the quickest miles that I've had in this in quite a long time due to the injury that I have been battling, and it felt incredible underfoot. I really enjoyed this run today and the ride of this shoe. You know, with some of these slower miles, I've been running in really normal feeling shoes for quite a while, so my perspective might be a little bit skewed on the Miro SL. I, have barely run in any carbon. I ran in the Alpha Fly this weekend, but for almost an entire week before that, I believe I didn't run in any carbon. And this, not that this is a carbon, but I've not been running in the most energetic shoes, so to speak. And so this was a big shift in my running approach and like the type of shoe that I've been choosing. And it was a welcome surprise at how well I got along with this today on the run. And it was the same route that I've been doing. It's the flattest area that I have access to that I could continuously run for X amount of miles. So yeah, it was a really great run. With that, some context about this shoe. The Miro SL was originally released a little bit ago. I don't know exactly how long, sometime either at the end of last year or the beginning of this year, but it flopped because there was something wrong with the tongue where the tongue was cutting people up. There were these little tendrils of plastic that seemed to dig into some people's top of foot. I think I saw Jog on Crego talking about this, and Kwai also brought this up. So I wasn't interested in the first version of this. I just was like, okay, well, I'm not going to review that if it's literally a broken shoe that has a problem with it. Then, as I was scrolling through Taobao looking for shoes to try out, I noticed that they had fixed the upper on this. So I got really lucky in the timing of purchasing this, and that I was able to get people's take on the shoe before actually trying out the first version. Which is going to for sure color the overall opinion of the Miro SL franchise. Like, you're not going to find a lot of resources on the 1.5 because the one was so poorly received for one very specific reason that many people just sort of wrote it off. And I'm here to tell you, you do not need to write this off. This is crazy good. And with that, let's talk about the specs and materials. First of all, and speaking of why, I got the stack height from his video on the Miro SL1. The way that he listed the stack height was that the brand 361 is claiming that they have a stack of 3326 for a 7mm drop, but that I agree with his assessment on his video that that is completely impossible because it feels much higher stack than that. And a lot of Chinese brands include their stack height without the insole as a measurement. So with the insole, it would be about 3730. As I was out on the run, I thought this is 40, easily a 40mm stack height shoe. It feels robust. It feels probably taller than the Evo SL, if not exactly the same. So that's the rough estimate of the stack height. I also, I could buy the 7mm drop. I could also buy it being a 6. I don't really buy it being an 8 though. So it's somewhere in the mix of 6 to 7. The foam, I was talking about this out on the run. In my mind, there's no way that this isn't TPEE. The material in the material list on the marketing material on Taobao for this shoe does say TPEE, but it doesn't say TPEE for the midsole. It just says vaguely that that's one of the materials used. And a lot of times, brands will use either like a TPU mesh upper or a TPEE mesh upper. So it could be that that's what they're listing it for. But because of how exactly similar this feels to Light Strike Pro and other TPEEs, that's what the midsole compound is. It has to be. There's no plate, but there is a shank. You could see it through the sole hole right here. It weighs 235 grams. The upper is a no frills, no real point of interest. I guess there's a little point of interest with the eyelet chain. It's a slightly longer eyelet chain, like not quite as extended as what's on the Dynafish Xiaoyan, but it is like a little bit. There's some, I think, one or two more parallels to the laces than your typical running shoe, or at least it felt longer when I was lacing it up this morning. I don't actually know, guys. It just felt very customizable this morning, but it also felt a little annoying to customize because I think that the laces are laced backwards except for the last lace loop, last lace eyelet chain parallel thing. The outsole is RPU, which is probably like CPU, but R instead of C. Don't know what the R stands for. The tongue is not gusseted, but it's sewn in part of the way down. Now, I did actually experience the tongue slipping partway down my foot, but it did not slip far enough down my foot for it to become an issue. So the laces never touched my foot. The tongue was always still protecting me against the laces, but it did slide and move a little bit throughout the run. And the price that I paid for this, though I don't know if the price went up or down. I'm very confused by how pricing works on Chinese running shoes. I know I'm not alone, but what I paid for this was $58. It costs roughly, generally, about $30 to get a pair of running shoes from China to the United States. So that's a total of $88. But the retail price, if you're living somewhere that's not the United States, you will be able to get this shipped to you for cheaper. We just are like unfortunate in the fact that we live in the United States and there's this whole thing with the geopolitics or whatever. That's why the price is high for Americans, and we deserve it. That's it for the specs and materials. Time to talk about the fit. This fit really well. I have very little to say about it. I laced it up. I had to adjust the laces one time to get a more secure fit, but once I did that, it stayed tied. It felt the same throughout the remainder of the run. It fits really well in a size 10. I'm in between sizes. Generally, I prefer a 10 these days. And in some shoes, I could get along with a 9.5. But for this one, I went with a 10, and that's what worked. I think that that's what anybody who is always the same size should do. That's just go true to size. If you're between sizes like I am, go with your bigger size. And now, for the ride. This rides like the Evo SL. It just does. It has, even though it's a much less pronounced medial cutout, it still has something of a medial cutout. It has this big landing pad in the forefoot. It has a pretty similar amount of rocker, although I think this one might be just a little bit better than the Evo SL's rocker, or maybe a little smoother, and not quite as gradual in the forefoot. It's great. It's a great, fast feeling, encouraging, clawing you along style, zone 3 style shoe. You could use it as a speed trainer. I do think it suffers from some minor instability, not to the degree that I remember the Evo SL feeling, but it is, it's an energetic super foam with, I would say, a very similar density to the Evo SL. It feels like a bouncy ball under your foot, and it's not the biggest bounce out of any running shoe in 2026, but it's up there. It's at least equivalent to the Evo SL in bounce. I'm pretty sure this is the same exact foam, and it has a fixed upper. So what can I say about the ride that hasn't been said already about the Evo SL? It's really hard to think of much. I think that if I took this shoe as an independent shoe, and not in context of the very obvious context of the market share that this is competing with, I would be really pleased with this no matter what. Like, this is a daily trainer that is better than your average daily trainer. I would say that so far, I already prefer this to the Puma DV8 Pure, and that's partially because it just feels a little lower drop, and also the foam feels a little bit more lively. Not like crazy more lively, but more, for sure. I think this sits for me in terms of likability and get along withness. This sits somewhere between the Evo SL and the Dynafish Xiaoyan. Obviously, I've been through a lot with the Xiaoyan, and I've also actually been through even more miles in the Evo SLs, the two pairs that I owned. And I think that this fits almost squarely in between the two. This is much better than the Evo SL in my opinion, and all it really takes is a new upper on top of it. And I know that if I had tried some of the more current variations of the Evo, that I would probably get along with those, like the woven, for example, better than the original version of the Evo SL, because all of my issues with that shoe are really upper related with slight instability, and this also fixes those problems. And so it's like when you have a firmer but energetic foam, if there are any geometric problems with it, those get exacerbated because of the type of foam that you're using. Like if it were a softer, squishier foam, that could bring its own problems, but it would be you would be sinking into it more, it would be more accommodating, and it would have like less of this sharp like drop off. In particular, what I'm talking about is with the Evo SL and with this shoe, there's a pretty firm drop off on the medial side where if you have instability and your foot collapses inwards and pronates inwards, there could be like a really kind of sharp feeling of tippage going on there. I think that this does a little bit better of a job of managing that. And I think it's because there's even actually a bit of a scooping in of the platform that you're on. So there's something of a sidewall here that the Evo SL doesn't exactly have, that this allows you to sort of sink into the platform a little bit more and protects you from like pronating excessively. But when you have these firmer foams that are very energetic, it's going to show you the problems with the geometry, or at least this is my experience with it. Like I notice geometry more in firmer shoes. Like the Azura is a good example. When I run in the Azura, when I run in that shoe, I very much notice the forefoot rocker because the whole shoe is very firm and rigid. And so when you're going through your stride, you get to this pivot point that just sort of tips you forward. And the firmer the shoe is, the more, that's just what I'm getting at. The firmer the shoe is, the more noticeable geometry is, for better or worse. It could be a really good thing. Like I really like the Endorphin Azura's geometry. It's still a very noticeable geometry. It's hard to say without running in it back to back with the Evo SL whether or not the Miro SL is like for sure the better geometric shoe, but today I did not really have any instability issues. It's like I can feel it, especially coming downhill. There's this TPEE characteristic of like this like landing and then side to side like jiggliness that I don't totally love for coming downhill in TPEE compounds, but I also don't totally hate it. It's just very telling of what the midsole compound actually is. And so if you are really sensitive to instability, that might be something to note here, but I think the upper does a better job of keeping you within the platform so that the naturally unstable characteristic of this type of foam doesn't show itself quite as much. It doesn't reveal itself, or at least not on this first run to me did it reveal itself as much as the Evo SL has historically done. Other things of note, I'm not totally sure about this big cutout here. I don't know if it's necessary. I'm sure it's to save weight. I don't know how much weight something of this nature generally saves, but it is a big, big cutout. And no rocks were collected in the making of this review, but I could see there being some rocks collected in the future in this for sure. But it didn't seem to also, again, make the shoe any more unstable than it would have been. About grip, it was a dry day, but this has something of the characteristic of the X-Step 2K Pro, where the outsole feels really sticky. I don't know if it's just because it's a brand new shoe and it's a CPU, presumably CPU. I don't know what RPU is, but it seems like it is very sticky on the ground from the first run. It was very encouraging to run in something that made me run quicker than I've been able to for the past couple of weeks. It put a smile on my face today, and I'm looking forward to running many miles in this. I was joking out on the run that I might just run in this shoe and only this shoe until I'm recovered from my injury because it took very good care of me today. Maybe that's all I need. So let's talk about the price in a little bit more depth. And there's something that I do actually want to bring up here. The Evo SL is a very widely available running shoe right now that a lot of people love, and the price has come down a lot. You could often find pairs for like 80 to 100 bucks, and it makes it hard to recommend people go through the extra work to purchase a shoe that will ultimately end up costing at least Americans an equivalent amount of money. Now, if you live in Australia where the import fees seem to be greatly reduced and also it's closer to mainland China than the US is, you're going to have an easier time importing it and it will cost less overall for you to purchase a shoe like this or any Chinese shoe. So it might be worth for anybody outside of the US to consider setting up a Taobao account and actually purchasing shoes through Taobao. But for now, if you're in the United States and the only way to get the Miro SL 1.5 right now is through Taobao, as far as I know, maybe AliExpress, it will be a little bit maybe not worth it for the roughly $88 it would be, right? This is a $58 shoe retail. If you lived in China, you'd be swimming in shoes right now. But the reality of importing shoes to the United States from China is it's not always the most price efficient thing. It's more price efficient than most running shoes on the US and Western market by a good margin, but it's inconvenient as well. And when you have a shoe that competes so directly with this in a ton of different ways, I don't know that I could say that this price is low enough to justify making the switch to the Miro SL from the Evo SL. If you're already an Evo SL fan, you're going to be getting much the same experience that you're getting in this. The difference is that this has a much better upper on it, and it's really likable. It's a really likable ride. I enjoyed myself thoroughly today in this shoe. So, it's worth it if you already have the Taobao set up. It's probably cheaper than you're going to immediately be able to find a Evo SL for, and especially if it's the chalk standard first version of the Evo SL and not one of the woven or the exos. Like, this might actually be worth seeking out because it corrects a lot of the initial issues with the Evo SL. I can't speak to the EXO and the woven version, whether or not they're actually that much better than the original Evo, but by all accounts that I've heard, they kind of are. So if you already have access to the EXO or the woven, and you could get that at an equivalent price to like $88 or even like $100, maybe go with those. But if you don't have access to those shoes at that price, I would say it might actually be worth setting up a Taobao and getting the shoe. And I have a tutorial on how to do that in the description if you need a hand getting set up. Who is this for? That's a pretty easy answer. People that like the Evo SL, also people that like Zone 3 speed trainers with really rockered heel to forefoot geometry, floaty boaty shoes that go really quickly, punchy, firmer foam enjoyers. Those are all of the people that are in the mix for buying the 361 Miro SL 1.5. And with that, I appreciate your attention to the Miro SL, and as always, stay in motion.